The treasure chest was almost always empty, and the man who found it was usually already dead. We have been sold a version of piracy that smells like adventure and tastes like rum. A world of dramatic flags, buried gold, and captains who shout poetic things into the wind while looking impossibly cool. But the real pirate life was something else entirely. It was wet. It was rotten. It was short. And it almost never ended well. So today, we are going inside the actual golden age of piracy. Not the movie version. The real one. And by the end, you will never romanticize a skull and crossbones the same way again. Picture yourself on a wooden ship somewhere in the Atlantic. It is the early 1700s. The deck is slippery. The air smells like sewage, salt, and something you have decided not to identify. You have not eaten anything good in 3 weeks. Your hammock is wet. Your shipmate next to you is coughing in a way that sounds permanent. And somewhere below deck, a rat is eating your spare shirt. This is the golden age of piracy. You are living it right now. The names we remember are legendary. Blackbeard, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, Mary Read, Black Bart Roberts. These names carry weight, danger, and a certain cinematic electricity. But for every Blackbeard, there were hundreds of nameless men who died from infected wounds, drowned in storms, or were hanged in public harbors before they ever found a single coin worth keeping. Most pirates were not legends. Most were desperate, former sailors, escaped laborers, men who had been beaten, underpaid, and discarded by legal ships. Men who looked at normal life and calculated that gambling everything on crime was actually the better option. And here is the uncomfortable truth. For some of them, they were probably right. Life on a legal merchant ship was already brutal. Sailors worked punishing hours for almost nothing. Navy men could be kidnapped off the street by press gangs and forced into service with no choice and no exit. Captains could beat you legally, starve you, work your body until it failed. So when a pirate crew captured a ship and offered the surviving sailors a choice, some of those sailors probably felt something close to relief. Because pirate ships were, in a genuinely strange way, more democratic than anything else available. Captains were elected. Captains could be removed by vote. Crews signed written agreements called articles that outlined how loot was divided, how punishments were handled, and what compensation a man received if he lost a limb in battle. Pirates had workplace injury policies before most governments had labor laws. Lose an arm, receive a payout. Lose a leg, receive a different payout. The captain earned more than the crew, but not dramatically more. If a regular pirate received 1 share, the captain might receive 2. That seems reasonable until you remember the entire business model was armed robbery on open water. Every man had a role. The quartermaster managed discipline and distribution of plunder. The carpenter kept the ship structurally alive. The gunner controlled the cannons. The surgeon, if there was one, attempted medicine with tools that would make a modern doctor faint. And the cook tried to transform salted meat, dried peas, and hardtack biscuits into something edible. Hardtack was a biscuit engineered to outlast civilization. Sailors ate it in darkness so they could not see the weevils moving inside it. Water turned stale within weeks. Meat rotted. Rats contaminated everything. Fresh food existed at the beginning of a voyage and then disappeared like a rumor. What remained was hunger, scurvy, and the kind of desperation that makes a man eat things he would never describe to his family. Rum helped. Not medically. Just emotionally. The ship itself was a floating wooden nightmare. Cramped, damp, and packed with men, animals, weapons, barrels, smoke, and disease. Privacy was a concept that did not apply here. Your sleeping space was a hammock. Your bathroom was the ocean, accessed with poor balance and no dignity. The smell was something between a fish market, a hospital ward, a locker room, and a building on fire. That smell was home. Disease moved through crews like rumor. Scurvy made gums swell and old wounds reopen. Dysentery could destroy an entire crew in days. Infection spread because everything was wet, dirty, and surrounded by sharp metal. If you were badly injured and the ship had no surgeon, the carpenter sometimes performed amputations. Because apparently the logic was simple. If you can saw wood, you can saw a limb. Anesthesia was rum. Pain management was a rag to bite. Pirate freedom came with a very real possibility of gangrene. Then came battle. And here is where the reality diverges most sharply from the fantasy. Pirates did not want to fight. Fighting was expensive, dangerous, and unpredictable. The ideal pirate attack ended before it began. A terrifying flag, a heavily armed ship, a captain with a name that made merchants reconsider their life choices. If the target surrendered immediately, everyone went home with cargo and no new wounds. Blackbeard understood this psychology completely. He reportedly wore slow-burning fuses in his beard during confrontations, surrounding his face with smoke and making himself look like something that had crawled out of a nightmare. Was it practical? No. Was it effective? Absolutely. Fear was a weapon, and a cheaper one than cannon fire. But when actual combat happened, it was catastrophic. Cannons did not make clean holes. They turned wood into flying shrapnel. Boarding a ship meant smoke, screaming pistols, cutlasses, axes, and a deck that had become slick with blood. Winning was not guaranteed. And winning still meant injuries, losses, and a ship that needed immediate repair, melting, and after winning, the treasure was almost never treasure. Pirates were usually stealing sugar, tobacco, cloth, medicine, tools, and alcohol. The iconic chest overflowing with gold was mythology. Most pirates were stealing cargo and racing to sell it before the Navy located them. When they finally reached port and received their share, many spent it within days. Port towns were designed to extract money from sailors. Taverns, gambling, merchants, and every variety of temptation waited to separate a pirate from his earnings. A man could risk his life for months, collect his payment, and be completely broke before the week ended, which meant returning to sea. Returning to the storms, the hunger, the smell, and the wooden box of misery. Storms were perhaps the most honest enemy a pirate faced. A hurricane did not negotiate. It did not respond to reputation or dramatic speeches. It snapped masts, flooded decks, and drowned men without ceremony. There was no sword fight with the ocean. You simply held on and hoped it lost interest in you. But here is what changes everything when you look closely. Pirates were not simply criminals. They were workers operating inside one of the most dangerous environments on Earth, building small functional societies inside chaos. They sang. They gambled. They argued. They voted. They enforced rules among themselves. Some pirate articles banned gambling on board. Some required lights out at a specific hour, which is remarkable when you consider these were men who had rejected every other form of authority. Even outlaws needed bedtime rules to survive. Discipline existed because without it, everyone died. Break the articles and punishment was severe. Flogging, marooning on an empty island with minimal supplies and almost no chance of survival. The crew understood that cooperation was not optional. It was the only reason any of them were still alive, but pirate careers were short, devastatingly short. Not decades of adventure. Not a comfortable retirement with a parrot and a beach. 2 years on average. Sometimes less. After that, you were dead, captured, hanged, or hiding somewhere under a false name, pretending you had always been a fisherman. Governments eventually responded with overwhelming force. The British Navy expanded its patrols. Colonial governors offered pardons to lure pirates into surrendering. Professional pirate hunters tracked famous crews. Captured pirates were tried publicly and hanged publicly. Their bodies were sometimes displayed in iron cages near harbors, left to decompose where every passing sailor could see them. The message required no translation. This is what the Empire does to people who steal from it. So what was pirate life actually like? It was not freedom the way we imagine freedom. It was freedom with a countdown attached. You could vote for your captain. You could split the plunder. You could drink in a port town and feel for one single night like the world had no walls. But every storm, every infection, every empty barrel, every Navy patrol, and every courtroom was already moving toward you. Pirates did not escape the rules. They found small, violent gaps between the rules and lived inside those gaps for as long as the gaps held open. And for a brief, dangerous, exhausting, and occasionally extraordinary time, that gap must have felt like the entire world. Then the rope dropped, and the gap closed, and the sea moved on without them.